Hello, and welcome to There's More to the Story with Amber Albee Swenson. I am so excited to introduce you to a good friend of mine who, Tracy, I was trying to figure out, when did we meet? Was it a couple of years ago?
It was a couple of years ago, and we went to dinner with Rhoda
Yeah.
downtown Milwaukee.
Yeah, we were met through our mutual friend, Rhoda. And
Yes.
Tracy has been just a godsend in my life. And I think you're going to understand why as we get into this discussion. Her life, like most people, has taken some twists and turns, and Tracy has really learned to roll with the punches, and that's what I love about her, and she's an inspiration for me, and I think you'll find the same. So, good morning, Tracy. Good to have you on my podcast.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here, Amber.
Yeah, we're going to get started by talking about how you sort of got on the career path that you got on. So, did you go to college first, or did you start as a flight attendant first?
No, I did. I graduated from Wisconsin Lutheran College with a BA in communications.
Okay, so what led you into the flight attendant career?
It's a question that I get asked a lot, and it's interesting because when you ask flight attendants, why did you do this? They usually say, it's because I love people and I love to travel. Those are like the two things.
Yeah.
And that was not it for me. When I graduated from college, I was looking for a job. And I remember that I had met the marketing director for Midwest Express Airlines at the time. They were based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I had met her through the college. So I called her and I said, "Are you hiring?" Because I thought maybe my communications degree would get me into the marketing department, maybe some PR, something like that. And she said, "The only job we're hiring right now for is the flight attendant role."
Oh, wow.
And I thought, well, I might as well give that a try. And that's a step in the door. So that's how it started.
Wow, I love that. I didn't know that either. That's amazing. Then being a flight attendant was a stepping stone that eventually led you to be a chief experience officer, but there were a lot of steps along the way. Walk us through that progression.
Yeah. So when I started as a flight attendant, and I can remember my very first flight when I landed in New York, LaGuardia Airport. I could not believe I was in New York. And I thought, well, this is a great job. But then shortly thereafter, about maybe a year and a half, 2 years, I kind of got that itchy feeling that I wanted to do more. And I always knew I wanted to be in management.
Okay.
And I think this is the way God made me. Every 2 years, I got a little fire in the belly, and that's how I describe that feeling of I want to do something else, or I want to do something more challenging. So I wanted to be an in-flight training instructor, and so I interviewed twice. Did not get the job. And then the third time. So God was teaching me some perseverance through that. The third time I got that job and I loved it. But then about 2 years after, I got that itch again, that fire in the belly. And so I went over to the operations side of things to just learn everything there was to do kind of within an airline.
Mm-hmm.
And then I gradually escalated from there, eventually became the director of in-flight services for Midwest Airlines. And 9/11 happened, and Midwest Airlines kind of struggled a little bit on the recovery side. And then all of a sudden, a headhunter had called me.
Tell me what that
And they
is. What
said,
is a headhunter?
"What, a headhunter?" Yeah, I know, right? And, I was still kind of green. So when a headhunter calls you and says, "Hey, there's a company looking for someone to fit this role," it was all kind of new to me. And they said, "Yeah, this is a vice president level position. It's with Comair, which was the Delta Airlines subsidiary. And they want to talk to you about the role." And Amber, when I think back to that time, I hung up the phone. I was in my office and I started writing notes. And I thought, how did they get my name and why do they think I could do this job? We tend to be self-critical and think,
Yeah.
well, they couldn't possibly think I could do this, right? So I had to get over that hurdle myself. And I went forward and I went through the selection process and they offered me the job and I took it. So I accepted the role. I flew out to Cincinnati, Ohio, all by myself. I bought a condo, and it was a really tough couple of years because Delta Airlines, which was the parent company, they said, look, your cost structure is too high. You got to bring your costs down. Well, the way you bring your costs down is you have to negotiate with unions, right? And by doing that, you're going into concessionary bargaining. And concessionary bargaining basically is, well, we want to pay you less, but you have to work harder.
Oof.
So that was kind of the environment that I walked into, which was, that part was not a lot of fun. And the sad part of that was we could not get the concessions we needed. We could not cut costs. And so I went from about 1,200 employees in my department down to about 400 in 2 years, a little less than 3 years. So what happens when Delta Airlines takes flying and gives it to other regional carriers that are doing it cheaper, you have to furlough your employees. And that's what I was doing. And that wasn't fun. So eventually my job was eliminated, which ended up being a huge blessing because I really wasn't really happy there. And so God found a way to get me back to Wisconsin. And I ended up at Wisconsin Lutheran College, my alma mater, in the adult and graduate studies program. I did a couple of classes where I was an adjunct professor, helped them out a little bit on the administration side. And then once again, a headhunter reached out and they said, there's
I'm
this
still
airline.
not quite sure what a headhunter is. What is that? Is that someone who's
Sure.
trying to pluck somebody and give them a job from a different career path, or what is that?
Yeah, they're like a third party. So companies will hire a firm and say, look, this is the position we're hiring for. They do like executive searches.
Okay.
And this is the skill set we're looking for. And then this firm goes out and looks.
Wow.
And then they bring viable candidates to the company to interview.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Okay.
I should have explained that a little bit more sooner. So
That's okay.
yeah. So another headhunter reached out and said, there's this airline. It's Allegiant Air out of Las Vegas, Nevada. They're looking for someone to take over their in-flight department. And in-flight is basically all the flight attendant stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Las Vegas, that's not really I don't think that's a place that I would want to move to. But at the same time, and this just shows God's hand in everything. At the same time, my husband, who's an airline pilot, was offered a job with Hawaiian Airlines, and he was going to be based in Honolulu. Oh, and I didn't want to move there. So Las Vegas was kind of in between Wisconsin and Hawaii. And we decided this is God's plan for us. Mm-hmm. And we'll make a home in Las Vegas. And that'll be our next step in life. And that's what we did. So I started with them. And I had actually taken a position back. I went to a director level. And then pretty quickly was elevated to a vice president role. And then one day, and keep in mind, Amber, this pattern of like every 2 years, right?
Yes.
It just really is consistent throughout my career. Like every 2 years, the fire in the belly, and God made sure that those things and who I was being fulfilled. It's just such an interesting story. But so it was about a couple of years, and the CEO of our company approached me and said, what do you think about taking over flight crew operations, which was really the pilot area of the airline?
Wow.
And yeah. And at that time, Amber, I was so ready for something new, something more challenging, something different, because my whole career so far had been really in flight. And I'd been asking for some more responsibility. So I looked at him, we were having lunch, and I looked at him and I said, well, I've got some strikes against me. So let's talk about those first. I'm not a pilot. I'm not a trained pilot. So I don't have the credibility of the role. So that's number one. Number two, I'm a female. It's a male dominated work group. So that could be a little challenging. And thirdly, they may view me as a flight attendant, and that may not go over well.
Right.
However, I understood the work group. I was married to a pilot. I knew that they, like everybody else, doesn't matter if you're male or female, you want to be needed, you want to be cared for, you like to have communication, you want to be included, and you want someone who's going to lead you and help you do your job better. So I said, a good leader, I think, can do all of those things.
Yeah.
And he said, well, let's give it a try.
That's
So,
amazing. What would you be
yeah.
doing
And
in that job, in that role, working with the pilots? What would you be doing exactly?
sure. So it involved labor relations. They were represented by the Teamsters. So working with them on work rules and negotiating contracts, things like that, overseeing their training, their regulatory compliance. For me and my thought process, the most important thing was building the relationship with them and earning their trust. So the first thing I did, and we had, I mean, Amber, this airline was very unique. It didn't have like 2 crew bases. We had like 20,
Oh, wow.
and they were all throughout the country. So I hit the road. I flew to every base with my team.
Oh,
We put together a business presentation. We got in front of the pilots. I got them to know me know them, to try to build that trust and find out what were their pain points, and let's start working on them. And I think that really helped because they hadn't seen leadership in so long.
yeah.
And one of the neat things and one of the amazing opportunities that job afforded me was I got to ride in the cockpit with the pilots during flight.
Are you serious?
And I got to be, yes. And it's because being their leader, I wanted to see their work environment and I wanted to observe them. And I was always so impressed. They're under pressure. They're managing checklists. They're communicating with each other. But I wanted to learn that aspect of their job, but then also have an opportunity to talk to them in their work environment.
Sure.
So I had them enclosed in the flight deck for a couple of hours, right? So, but don't get me wrong, I was very nervous. I was very afraid. Things could go really bad or really good.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
And
Did you ever have
what I
a
was
really bad experience with some pilots in the cockpit? Or no?
never once.
Oh, wow.
I think I did in the first year that I was in that role. I think I flew 52 times
Oh,
and I never
my.
had one bad experience. They were very welcoming. They were so pleased that someone from leadership was actually taking the time to be with them in the cockpit.
I love that.
That had not happened.
Yep.
So all those things were really good. But, and then when I would travel, I would, have to give these business presentations and I was in my hotel room before I'd go out there. And it's like going on stage because you're having to present and handle questions. And sometimes the questions were tough questions. But I would just pray, God, you have got me here for some reason. So use me for your good. You are in this with me, so come out there with me.
Yeah.
And I would do that every time. And it was amazing how receptive the pilot group was. It was pretty neat opportunity. So I did that for a couple of years, but, COVID hit, and that was really, really an ugly time. We were trying to get concessions because we didn't know how long the customer demand wasn't there. People weren't flying. They were afraid to fly. So we were pulling back service and we were dealing with all of that. And it was just a very difficult time. We weren't getting cooperation from the union and on the pilot side. On the flight attendant side, we were. So eventually, you come out of that. And then I was also in charge of the customer experience leadership team. And so the CEO at the time, there had been a transition. He came and said, what do you think about making a C-suite level position focused on both the internal and the external customer experience? And that was fascinating to me and another opportunity to lead at a higher level.
Yeah.
And so I said, let's do it. And that's how I became the chief experience officer.
Wow. And how many years did you do that? The chief experience officer?
About 2, maybe a little less than 2.
Okay.
Or
And
closer to a year. Closer to a year.
That's dealing with the public as well as the employees. So how did that experience go? Was it hard, especially right after COVID?
Yes. It was hard because you were constantly having to react to the environment, new regulations coming out. What are your policies and procedures? What's the messaging to customers? Then the training for your employees. So it was really busy, But we had also been going through so much transition internally, and we were changing software systems and, a lot of things like that. And so my focus also was internally and building relationships inside the organization because we had so many silos, because everybody was just focused on their thing.
Sure.
And we needed to bring that full circle. And so, it was just a really, really busy time.
It sounds incredibly challenging, especially at that time in history. And I think it's great. I mean, it shows that the airline really put a lot of, they knew your potential, but B, it seems like it's great experience that God allowed you to go through that at that time. I mean, the lessons that you learned there have to kind of carry you through the rest of your life, I would imagine.
It was incredible. And when I think back to all the opportunities that God gave me, I feel extremely blessed and grateful.
Yeah, for sure. So talk about, you retired in 2023. What led up to that? What made you decide to step away?
I was very involved in February of 23 in bringing all of our directors and above to Las Vegas for a huge leadership conference. And it was all on my team. So we were busy all the time, really focused on this pretty big event.
Yeah.
And I was starting to experience this jaw pain in my jaw. When I would walk my dogs in the morning, I would get jaw pain. When I would carry my briefcase walking into the office, I would get this jaw pain. And I knew something was going on. Something wasn't right. So in between breaks from this leadership conference, I'm calling the doctor trying to get in because I feel like something not good is going to happen.
Yeah.
And my doctor got me in, and he was such a nice guy. And he said, "Oh, you're fine. You're good. Here, everything's showing up good. Let's do an EKG so you can rest assured that you're okay." So we did an EKG, and he said, "See, look at," and he showed me the report. He goes, "Look, everything's great." And I said, "Something's not right. I just know."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, if it makes you feel better, I'll refer you to a cardiologist." And I said, "Okay." So he did. And I went and saw the cardiologist, and he said, "Oh, I'm sure it's nothing. It probably is just some GERD. You're young, you're athletic. It's probably nothing." And Amber, I know your body, right? And your gut feeling. I just knew something wasn't right. And he said, "Well, we'll run you through all these tests." So I did the echocardiogram, I did the ultrasound, I did all of these things, and everything came back great. Well, then I go into this stress test, and you probably know this better than I do being a nurse, but they inject that nuclear dye into your arm, and it makes your heart feel like you're working out. And I felt like I felt really bad. I felt like I was going to die right there.
Oh,
and
wow.
The technicians looked really scared. And it took me a little bit to recover from that, for them to take whatever pictures they needed. And they said, "Oh, don't worry. Everybody reacts differently to this test." And I said, "Something is not right."
Yeah.
And I remember driving home from there, calling my mom, and I was sobbing. And I said, "Nobody's listening. Something's not right."
Yeah.
Well, sure enough, within 24 hours, I got the phone call, and they said, "There's an abnormality, so we need you to come in for an angiogram." And I didn't know anything. What is this? So I start Googling, and I see all these horrible things that this could be. And I said, "I want to talk to the cardiologist. I need to know what's going on." And so he was on vacation, and he called me, which I loved.
Oh.
But yeah, very nice, right? But he'd been through this how many times? I hadn't. And he said, "Well, if you have a blocked artery, we'll just put a stent in. And if it's something else and you need maybe bypass surgery, we'll do this." And it was like all these things. And I thought, I could have bypass surgery? Like, what's happening?
Right.
So I think what started there, Amber, was health anxiety. What is it? And then you Google, and then you go down that path of all these what ifs.
Right.
And then there were problems with insurance. And so it was delaying my time to get into the angiogram. And there were just all these things happening at the same time. And so I did go in for the angiogram, and sure enough, I had a blocked artery. It was like 99 0.9%. So I was like this close to having a heart attack. I never
Wow.
had one. Thank you, God. But so they put a stent in, and I had a really difficult time recovering. So I got numbing in my arm. I had chest pain again, went into the ER. They had to do another angiogram to make sure the stent was okay. I mean, it was all of these things. And I just really struggled. And I think it's because I was so worried about the unknown and nobody was giving me any assurance.
Yeah.
So your mind, the devil works hard on you. So I got to a not a very good place. I was always worried about my health. And things at the office, Amber, the environment had been changing. So, you get through COVID, but then there's all these other things that as a Christian, you're being put in positions to make decisions. Your faith is being tested. People around you are not of like mind with those things. And so I was on a 2-year plan. I was ready to retire in 2 years. I thought I've achieved what I need to achieve. But this whole situation with my health, it was God's way of saying, it's my time, Tracy, it's not yours.
Yeah.
And that all led to my husband saying, I told you this job was going to kill you. And I never believed him. I thought, I love stress. I love to be challenged. This is my environment for 30 plus years, going 24/7.
Yeah.
But wow, it was an awakening. And that's what led to my leaving.
I think there's so many things that are interesting about that. One being women's health in general, and
Yes.
how difficult it can be. It can be difficult with anybody, not just women, but how difficult it can be to find out what's wrong with you and to keep pursuing when you're feeling things and they're saying, you're okay, there's nothing wrong, or take these meds and it'll mask the pain and you'll just be fine. And
Right.
I love the fact that you kept digging deeper. I'm on that same journey right now, just trying to get down a path of I've had terrible migraines and I've been trying to figure it out. And there's like it's not just one thing, It's
Right.
like food is part of it and hormones are part of it and your gut is part of it. And like there's a whole thing. And the answers sometimes take a lot longer than we would want them to take. But man, it's worth getting to the bottom of things and really not being, poo-pooed.
Yes. Yes. You have to be your own advocate. And I'm teaching my parents that now too.
Yeah.
Well, the doctor's office isn't calling me back. They're not going to. You have to keep calling them. Like you have to be your own self-advocate when it comes to your health.
Yeah, for sure. So you had so many different opportunities. I love too that so many opportunities just sort of fell in your lap. I've always felt like as that happens with me, that was just God's hand placing me somewhere else. But there's also a time to step away or say, I'm not sure that path is the one that I want to do. So which took more courage, to do all those new things that you had to do or to step away when you were at the top of your game?
I feel that all of those opportunities were challenges that God put in my path because he knew my personality. He made me the way I am. So that DNA in me, that drive was always there. So I don't think that took courage. That was, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
But to step away or to transition was very difficult for me. And I think it's because it wasn't on my terms.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my timing. And I had to accept that and then figure it out. And that was hard for me.
And what did that look like? So you moved from Nevada back to Wisconsin during that time. I mean, like you had a lot of transition during that time. It wasn't just the job. What all did you do?
When I got back to Wisconsin, I had to think about what is my purpose now? And how do I find that purpose? But I wasn't ready yet, Amber, really, because I was still figuring out who I was in a new world of not being 24/7, not making decisions every day. my whole life was completely upside down. And so I spent time for probably a year. And we were building a home. So I was living with my parents. We were living with my parents for about a year. And they live on a lake. And I would go outside and sit on their patio, and I would have my Bible. And I would be in that Bible all the time and building my relationship with God. And I will say, when I was in Las Vegas, kind of going through that before we relocated, my pastor, Pastor Tom Unke in Las Vegas, was the best shepherd I could have asked for, because he and I met a few times and he said, get into your Bible and start with Psalms. And I started reading Psalms, and I'm like, this is me. All this lamenting, my soul is afflicted. This is me.
Yeah.
But it made me feel like it's okay. You're going through this, but God's right here with you.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to find your path through it. You're going to find yourself again, and just be patient. And so I really focused on that, Amber. I also reconnected with my Christian friends I went to Lakeside Lutheran High School. I got back with them, my friends from WLC. I found new Christian friends through my church, St. Paul. I mean, the value of Christian friendships was huge for me coming out of this and finding who I was again. And I don't know that I've ever said this to you. Maybe I have, and I want to reemphasize this. I listened to you, Amber, on your podcast with Time of Grace and Pastor Novotny and the sermons and the devotions. That was my world for about a year.
Yeah.
And through all of that meditation and walking and listening and just knowing God was going to carry me through it, he did. That's what got me through. And I give so much credit to those things.
That's beautiful. I love that. I'm so glad you brought that up, because transition times are going to happen. You can't get away from it. It doesn't matter how great of a plan you have. Life is going to happen, and things are going to happen. Your kids are going to move away. You're going to all of a sudden have an empty nest. People die, parents, spouses. There's transition. You quit jobs, you get a new job, you end up moving. Transition happens. And as Christians, we have to decide how we're going to deal with that transition when it comes. And it's so beautiful that you went to God. And I also love that you had that year, that you didn't rush into things, that you just let God heal you, direct you, move you, prepare you for the next path, whatever that was. I have found the same situation lately. I left Time of Grace back a couple months ago, and it's been a pretty significant transition for me. But I spent a month just sort of grieving and, just walking with God and journaling and talking to friends and what's the next path going to look like. And it's been helpful, just like you said, to lean on God, to lean on those friends, but also to take some time to not just leap. But for me, I needed to take a little time to just sort of reset and make sure that my heart was in the right place, make sure that I, was aligning myself. That's one of my constant prayers is, God, align my will with yours, because I don't want to be doing stupid stuff on my own. I want to be going down the paths that you have for me. And so show me, close the doors that I shouldn't be going down, and really open the doors that you want me to go down, because I don't want to be doing this life and then wake up 20 years later and go, God never wanted this for me. He had something totally different planned for me, and I was just chasing all these shiny things. And so I've really had to spend a little time, and I'm still praying and asking my friends to pray and help me, which leads me to the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, because you actually were one of the very first people that I told that I thought that I would be leaving Time of Grace. And I wanted to read this text that you sent me, because I think it's so helpful for other people who maybe don't know how to support people when they're going through times of transition. And this you sent to me, 5 months before I actually stepped away back in the early days. But you
Okay.
said, you and I know that we have an awesome God who controls everything with purpose. I've got you in my prayers, sister. You are loved and appreciated by so many. Keep up the perseverance. And that I've kept that because it was, it just said so much about, first of all, knowing in times of transition, God is in control. And it's easy to overlook that or to feel like, wait, maybe he doesn't have this under control because we feel like things are
Right.
out of control. And so it was so helpful to remember, no, God is in control.
Yes.
To know that there are people in your corner, to know that there are people praying for you, to know that there are people saying, keep going, don't quit.
Right.
How have you found those things to help you? Or are there other things that you also noticed really helped you in this transition time?
I feel that, and thank you for sharing that, by the way. It just makes me emotional because I feel like you were so there for me too. And that's the blessing of Christian sisterhood, right?
Yeah.
That's it right there. We lift each
Right.
other up.
Right.
But one of the things, and maybe you experienced this too, Amber, for that period of time where you were grieving a little bit, the
Yeah.
change, the transition, I sometimes want to look back
Yeah.
and you think of the what ifs and, well, what if I was still there? And what if I was doing that? And I've had headhunters reach out again saying, hey, there's an opportunity here at this airline or this airline. And I knew that, I just knew you said God has closed doors and open doors. I
Yeah.
knew those were doors that were closed and I shouldn't be going down them anymore.
Yeah.
And I had to stop the looking back. I mean, look what happened with Lot's wife when she looked back, right? And God tells us
Yeah.
every morning I make everything new. I mean, I'm not getting that correct, but he tells us that. And my friends, my Christian friends helped me over that hurdle.
Yes.
And my mom reminds me, hey, listen, you would call me on the way to work and everything wasn't great over there either.
Yes.
Right. So it wasn't all great. But look forward and look at the opportunities God's giving you now. And he's given me so many blessings in this stage of retirement.
Yeah.
And that's been very helpful for me in the transition.
That's been something that I have continually kept in front of me too. I couldn't agree more. And it doesn't matter if it's again the empty nest stage or being a widow, and it's so easy to just long for what was instead
Yes.
of going forward. But I have noticed all throughout the Bible, there's this push to go forward. Joseph, when he was sold into Egypt, he worked hard. He didn't just lament and curl in a ball. He worked hard. Abraham, when he was called out to go to a land he didn't know, he went. Jesus, many times he had to leave a place because he was being persecuted by the Pharisees. Right. And so he had to leave and go to the next place. Or the people drove him out of town. Same with the Apostle Paul. And the constant striving was to move forward, to not worry about what was in the past. Just keep moving forward and go to the next place and it will be okay. And that's been a huge, huge lesson for me too. And I think that's something that people need to hear when they're in transition is take the time to grieve for sure. For sure, grieve. But don't miss out on the opportunities that God has for you, because that would be tragic too, to not see the doors that he's opening right here. One thing you did mention too is you mentioned your mom. One thing we haven't talked about is family, how big family has been for you, for me, as you transition. Your parents have been huge.
Yeah. I like to hang out with my parents. That's been a blessing for me. I'm over there all the time.
Yeah.
And I truly think that is a blessing. And I am with my nephews and my nieces, and what a blessing that's been. And one of those moments of looking back, I would fly my nephews and nieces out to visit me in Las Vegas, and we'd have so much fun, and we'd go to shows, and we'd go out for dinner and do all of those things. And part of me was like, oh, I don't get to do those things anymore. No, yes, I do. I can do them here, right?
Yeah.
It's just a different place. I can still do different things with them. And now I'm closer. So I get to go to their T-ball games, and I get to take
Yes.
them to, the zoo, and I get to babysit my great niece now, Emery, and she's just the joy of my life. And I couldn't do that if I was in Las Vegas. So again, to your point, perspective, stop looking back, move forward. It's amazing how God will bless you when you do that.
And I think too, you and I both are in the same season of life too, with our parents getting older and facing health
Yep.
issues. And
Yep.
you can't get these years back. And so I think when our lives are over, when we look back, we're going to see just how faithful God was to put us back in this position where we could spend some very, very meaningful time with our parents at a time that we won't get it back. And for me, that's been critical too. Not just with my mom, but also with my husband as he mourned the death of his mom. Just a whole lot of things were happening all at once. And I can see God's hand saying, that would have been too much. That would have been way too much for you. So we're just going to remove one thing, rest here, and just understand that family is a huge part of this whole ball of support and just doing life in the Christian walk. And it's not something to be discarded easily, like you'll get back to it someday. No, this is someday right here. So enjoy it, appreciate it, walk with your loved ones now while you can, and then just go wherever the Lord puts you, and it'll all work out.
Right, Amber. And, you're right. In this season of life, your parents are aging, there's health issues that come up, but your Christian friends, when they can relate to that and they've gone through things maybe before you, which in my situation that's happened, I'm leaning on them. They're leaning on me.
Yeah.
We're sharing. We're going through it together. It's such an uplifting opportunity for all of us. Do you feel that too? It's just
Yes.
amazing to have them to hold you up and you hold them up.
I have, so I wrote a book, Closer to Home, A Christian Guide to Finishing Well. I wrote it based on the experiences I had as a nursing assistant working in a nursing home and being a private elderly companion. And as I was writing it, my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And even up until, publishing, I was writing about that experience. And absolutely, 100%, I have a good, dear friend who, at church, who her husband went through the exact same thing about a year before my mom did. And my mom is at the exact same place. So it's been phone calls, it's been texts, it's been hugs at church, it's been total understanding. In fact, the day that my mom was put there, both she and her daughter reached out just saying, I know how hard this is. You need those people walking beside you, praying you on, encouraging you, supporting you. I can't imagine life without that.
100%.
Yeah. So what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned as you look back over your career and the transitions and the moving on? What have you found?
Oh boy. I've made a lot of mistakes. I think back, I've made a lot of mistakes, but hopefully I've learned from them. But one of the things that I think is, as women, we are very self-critical.
Yes.
And I was great at going home at night and rethinking about something I said in a meeting or something I did. And why did I do that? And why did I say that? I should have said this. And that would keep me up at night. I could not sleep. So I would say a lesson learned or something, to take away is don't let that happen to you.
Yeah.
So often I prayed to God, help me, God, going into this meeting, give me the words because, I'm going to have to stand up for being a Christian here and it's not going to go over well. So be with me. So whatever I said he was with me.
Yeah.
So leave it there. When you go home, leave it there. God's got it. He's going to
Yeah.
handle it for you from here. So don't let the devil take rest from you. God wants you to rest. He says that to us in the Bible. And I think I had lots of nights of unrest because I didn't learn that, and I should have learned that sooner. I would also say that don't change who you are. And I think that phrase, be your authentic self, has taken on a completely different connotation than
Yeah.
it should. But really be your authentic self. And what I mean by that is one time a person told me, well, you're dealing with men now, so you need to change who you are to fit in with them. And I thought, no, I can't do that. I'm not, and I'm
No.
not going to do that.
No.
I'm going to be who I am, right? So
Mm-hmm.
don't let somebody or a situation convince you to be something different. Stay true to who you are as a Christian for sure, but who God made you. And
Yeah.
then I would also say never underestimate the value of your Christian friends. If there's one thing, like those are your rocks, those are your ride or dies, and use them and lean on them.
Mm-hmm. I think that men are so different in this way. I think they have a hard time understanding. Female Christian friendships are, man, I don't know how you make it through without them. I really don't, because God made us for relationship. And I would say the exact same thing, that those phone calls, the prayers, the texts, the messages, the emails, the Facebook posts, the whatever, just all you need is one. Those days that you're like, what am I doing? You get a message and you're like,
Right.
that's what I'm doing. Okay, God, thank you. I would just add
Yes.
to what I have found is how faithful God is, that He walks us through these seasons. And I keep reminding myself, these seasons are not a surprise to Him, even when they're a surprise to us. We walk around the next
Right.
corner and we're like, did not see that coming. He's like, yeah, I did. And that's why I've
Yeah.
prepared you by having you go through this, or by putting this person in your life, or having this scripture. I can't tell you how many times I'm reading through my Bible and I'm like, that's just what I needed to hear today. That's exactly not
Yeah.
a surprise to God. Not at all.
That's so true, Amber. That is so true.
So there's more to this story. One of the things that I'm doing now as I close the episodes, I like to commission women, which is both giving them an assignment, but also then blessing them as they go on their way. I just wondered if there's something that you would say as a commissioning and as a blessing to the people who have listened to this episode.
We're doing a book club at church. It's led by our pastor. And a couple of months ago, we read this book called End Times, written by Pastor Nass. And I felt a commission after reading that book. So I feel a little compelled to share it.
Yeah,
This book, I don't know if you've heard of it, Amber, if you've read it, but
I have not read
I
it.
would encourage you to, because there are chapters dedicated to hell, to heaven, to Judgment Day. It's a really, really good read. But as you read it, it gives you a reality check
Yeah,
that heaven is real, hell is real, and Judgment Day is coming. And it's coming soon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, time is running out. And when we think of transition and purpose, we have to think of our purpose that God has truly given us here on this earth as Christians. We are here to tell the love of Jesus.
yeah,
And in this book, it talks about on Judgment Day, there are going to be people who will wonder, why am I not being allowed in to heaven? I'm a good person. I've not hurt anybody. I've helped people, but I don't get in. And there's going to be that surprise. And as I was reading that in that chapter, I was thinking of the people that I know are going to be those people. These are people I love.
yeah,
These are people I've met along the way in my career, in my lifetime. And I don't want them to go to hell. I want them to be in heaven and enjoy all of that with us. And so I felt commissioned after reading that book, like, I don't care if there's conflict. We come out of love. We need to go out there. We need to spread Jesus' love. We need to talk to people. We need to use every opportunity we can to serve him in that way. And so I would say that is something that I want to share and want people to know. It's the time is now.
I feel so
It's
compelled
now.
in the exact same way, Tracy, and that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm picking up and continuing on. I feel
Yeah.
people need to be encouraged to make a list of the people that they know in their life, people they know,
Right.
people in your sphere of influence. God doesn't call you to go talk to Tracy's neighbors. God doesn't call you to talk to someone who you don't know necessarily. I mean, you might end up on a flight next to someone and you can, but we all
That's
have
right.
those people in our life who we know. And at the very least, you start with prayer. You start with a prayer like, God, give me an opportunity and open their heart. Or if I'm not the one who's going to talk to them and they'll listen to, then put someone else in their life. But don't sit back and do nothing and be appeased and distracted by entertainment and all the things that this world throws at you when souls are being lost every single day. And we've got such a short time and you can't do everything, but each of us can do something, some little
Yes.
thing in our own little corner to just advance the kingdom of God. That's the charge we're given. And so that means a lot, Tracy. I'm glad that you said that. Thank you.
And thank you for what you're doing too, Amber, because I think that your work that you are doing is amazing and it is reaching people that you don't even know. So please keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, I'm happy to. Thank you. And thank you for being my friend, Tracy. I do
Aw,
appreciate all the encouragement, all the support. It's just, like you said, we need each other. So thank you for that.
thank you for being my friend too. Ditto.
All right. Thanks for listening. See you next time.